Language Foundations Vocabulary Flashcards, helping you achieve understanding.
The branch of linguistics that deals with syntax and morphology, and sometimes also deals with semantics. A description, at a given point in time, of a language with respect to its phonology and morphology and syntax and semantics without value judgments. A grammar that is produced by descriptive linguistics. The branch of geology that studies the characteristics and configuration and evolution of rocks and landforms. The admissible arrangement of sounds in words. Studies of the rules for forming admissible words. The branch of biology that deals with the structure of animals and plants. The grammatical arrangement of words in sentences. A systematic orderly arrangement. Studies of the rules for forming admissible sentences. A grammar that is produced by prescriptive linguistics. The humanistic study of language and literature. The scientific study of language. A separate section of a legal document, as a statute or contract or will. Grammar, an expression including a subject and predicate functioning as a part of a complex sentence. An artifact that is one of the individual parts of which a composite entity is made up, especially a part that can be separated from or attached to a system. A component or constituent element of a system. An abstract part of something. Two constituents of a musical composition are melody and harmony. Something determined in relation to something that includes it. The animal constituent of plankton. Constitutional in the structure of something, especially your physical makeup. Grammar, a word or phrase or clause forming part of a larger grammatical construction. A member of a constituency, a citizen who is represented in a government by officials for whom he or she votes. Needs continued support by constituents to be re-elected. In an attributive manner. The genitive noun is used attributively. Connected by a conjunction. A verb, or verb construction, that requires an object in order to be grammatical. Designating a verb that requires a direct object to complete the meaning. Not restricted or exclusive. Never having had security classification. Free of restrictions on conduct. I had unrestricted access. Not restricted or modified in meaning. Unrestricted verbs are usually stronger than those qualified by adverbs. Not subject to or subjected to restriction. Deficient in magnitude. Barely perceptible. Lacking clarity or brightness or loudness, etc. Weak colors. Used of vowels or syllables, pronounced with little or no stress. A weak stress on the second syllable. Overly diluted, thin and insipid. Weak tea. Wanting in moral strength, courage, or will, having the attributes of man as opposed to e.g. divine beings. Lacking bodily or muscular strength or vitality. Deficient in intelligence or mental power. A weak mind. Deficient or lacking in some skill. He's weak in spelling. Likely to fail under stress or pressure. The weak link in the chain. Not having authority, political strength, or governing power. A weak president. Tending downward in price. A weak market for oil stocks. Used of verbs having standard or regular inflection. Wanting in physical strength. A weak pillar. A separate section of a legal document, as a statute or contract or will. Bind by a contract, especially for a training period. Grammar. A determiner that may indicate the specificity of reference of a noun phrase. Non-fictional prose forming an independent part of a publication. One of a class of artifacts. An article of clothing. Grammar. A category of words having the same grammatical properties. Grammar. A word or phrase or clause forming part of a larger grammatical construction. Computer science. A tiny electromagnetic coil and metal pole used to write and read magnetic patterns on a disk. Be in charge of. Who is heading this project? A person who is in charge. The head of the whole operation. That which is responsible for one's thoughts, feelings, and conscious brain functions. The seat of the faculty of reason. I couldn't get his words out of my head. Be the first or leading member of a group and excel. This student heads the class. The educator who has executive authority for a school. The upper part of the human body or the front part of the body in animals, contains the face and brains. He stuck his head out the window. Travel in front of. Go in advance of others. The procession was headed by John. The part in the front or nearest the viewer. He was at the head of the column. A line of text serving to indicate what the passage below it is about. The heading seemed to have little to do with the text. A V-shaped mark at one end of an arrow pointer. A difficult juncture. Matters came to a head yesterday. Forward movement. The ship made little headway against the gale. Oral stimulation of the genitals. They say he gives good head. A dense cluster of flowers or foliage. A head of cauliflower. The subject matter at issue. Under the head of minor Roman poets. Direct the course. Determine the direction of traveling. The source of water from which a stream arises. They tracked him back toward the head of the stream. A natural elevation, especially a rocky one that juts out into the sea. Grammar. The word in a grammatical constituent that plays the same grammatical role as the whole constituent. A membrane that is stretched taut over a drum. An individual person. Tickets are $5 per head. A projection out from one end. The head of the nail. A rounded compact mass. The head of a comet. A single domestic animal. 200 head of cattle. A user of, usually soft, drugs. The office was full of secret heads. Be in the front of or on top of. The list was headed by the name of the president. Form a head or come or grow to a head. The wheat headed early this year. Nautical. A toilet on board a boat or ship. Remove the head of. Head the fish. Take its rise. These rivers head from a mountain range in the Himalayas. That part of a skeletal muscle that is away from the bone that it moves. The foam or froth that accumulates at the top when you pour an effervescent liquid into a container. The beer had a large head of foam. The front of a military formation or procession. The head of the column advanced boldly. The length or height based on the size of a human or animal head. He is 2 heads taller than his little sister. The pressure exerted by a fluid. A head of steam. The rounded end of a bone that fits into a rounded cavity in another bone to form a joint. The head of the humerus. The striking part of a tool. The head of the hammer. The tip of an abscess, where the pus accumulates. The top of something. The head of the stairs. To go or travel towards. Where is she heading? Usually plural, the obverse side of a coin that usually bears the representation of a person's head. Call heads or tails. A content word that can be qualified by a modifier. Grammar, the word in a grammatical constituent that plays the same grammatical role as the whole constituent. The goal intended to be attained, and which is believed to be attainable. The sole object of her trip was to see her children. A tangible and visible entity. An entity that can cast a shadow. It was full of rackets, balls and other objects. Be averse to or express disapproval of. My wife objects to modern furniture. Computing. A discrete item that provides a description of virtually anything known to a computer. In object-oriented programming, objects include data and define its status, its methods of operation and how it interacts with other objects. Express or raise an objection or protest or criticism or express dissent. She never objected to the amount of work her boss charged her with. Grammar, a constituent that is acted upon. The object of the verb. The focus of cognitions or feelings. Objects of thought. Logic. A word, such as some, or all, or no, that binds the variables in a logical proposition. Grammar. A word that expresses a quantity, as 15, or many. A branch of knowledge. Teachers should be well trained in their subject. Possibly accepting or permitting. The time is fixed by the director and players and therefore subject to much variation. A person who owes allegiance to that nation. A monarch has a duty to his subjects. Being under the power or sovereignty of another or others. Subject peoples. Make subservient. Forced to submit or subdue. The subject matter of a conversation or discussion. He didn't want to discuss that subject. Something, a person or object or scene, selected by an artist or photographer for graphic representation. A moving picture of a train is more dramatic than a still picture of the same subject. A person who is subjected to experimental or other observational procedures. Someone who is an object of investigation. The subjects for this investigation were selected randomly. Some situation or event that is thought about. He had been thinking about the subject for several years. Cause to experience or suffer or make liable or vulnerable to. He subjected me to his awful poetry. Grammar. One of the two main constituents of a sentence. The grammatical constituent about which something is predicated. Likely to be affected by something. The bond is subject to taxation. Logic. the first term of a proposition. Make accountable for. He did not want to subject himself to the judgments of his superiors. Grammar, a category of words having the same grammatical properties. Go together. Be in accord, be in agreement. We agreed on the terms of the settlement. Be compatible, similar or consistent, coincide in their characteristics. The two stories don't agree in many details. Achieve harmony of opinion, feeling, or purpose. No two of my colleagues would agree on whom to elect chairman. Be agreeable or suitable. White wine doesn't agree with me. Consent or assent to a condition, or agree to do something. She agreed to all my conditions. Show grammatical agreement. Subjects and verbs must always agree in English. Cause to change, make different, cause a transformation. Add a modifier to a constituent. Make less severe or harsh or extreme. Please modify this letter to make it more polite. Analyze syntactically by assigning a constituent structure to a sentence. Make fit or prepared. Specify as a condition or requirement in a contract or agreement. Make an express demand or provision in an agreement. Prove capable or fit. Meet requirements. Describe or portray the character or the qualities or peculiarities of. Add a modifier to a constituent. Make more specific. Qualify these remarks. Pronounce fit or able. Serving as or indicating the object of a verb or of certain prepositions and used for certain other purposes. Accusative endings. Containing or expressing accusation. An accusative forefinger. The case of nouns serving as the direct object of a verb. Engaged in or ready for military or naval operations. On active duty. Chemical agent capable of activity. Used of verbs, e.g., to run, and participial adjectives, e.g., running, in, running water, expressing action rather than a state of being. Taking part in an activity. An active member of the club. In operation. An active tradition. The voice used to indicate that the grammatical subject of the verb is performing the action or causing the happening denoted by the verb. The boy threw the ball uses the active voice. A person who is a participating member of an organization. The club issues a list of members, both the actives and the retirees. Characterized by energetic activity. An active toddler. Disposed to take action or effectuate change. A director who takes an active interest in corporate operations. Engaged in full-time work. Active duty. Exerting influence or producing a change or effect. An active ingredient. Expressing that the subject of the sentence has the semantic function of actor. Hemingway favors active constructions. Full of activity or engaged in continuous activity. An active seaport. Of e.g. volcanoes, capable of erupting. Of e.g. volcanoes, erupting or liable to erupt. Active volcanoes. Of the sun, characterized by an increased occurrence of sunspots and flares and radio emissions. tending to become more severe or wider in scope. Active tuberculosis. Of or relating to the aorist tense. Lacking conjunctions.
Become our student and get access to effective and free educational materials. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to become a part of our growing YouTube community and to learn English effectively.